Lovely to be here. Thank you for asking me to talk today. So just by way of introduction, Gleneagles is one of Scotland's most iconic luxury hotels and country estates, and we're very proud to be named among the world's 50 best hotels. Gleneagles is a big operation. We've got 2 hotels, an 850-acre estate, 3 golf courses, 11 bars and restaurants, and a large workforce. So we really do take our responsibility in minimising our impact very seriously. Gleneagles opened its doors in 1924, and over the last century, our success has been owed in no small part to the beautiful flora and fauna that surrounds us. So we must protect this for generations to come. Our sustainability strategy centres around 3 pillars of responsibility, and this really guides and frames everything that we do across the business. So our first pillar is conserve nature, and that's how we as custodians of what we call the glorious playground work tirelessly to conserve nature and support healthy ecosystems. I'm going to talk predominantly about this today, especially how we are working in our green areas and how we're implementing responsible land and water stewardship and how we're working to protect and enhance biodiversity. Our second pillar is source responsibly, and this is how we work with suppliers who share and uphold the same sustainability and animal welfare values that we have in the business and create a positive impact in our local community and beyond. And our final pillar is protect our planet, and that is how we are working to address the risk of climate change through minimising our carbon footprint and our impact on the planet. So I'm going to stay there just a minute. Our planet is facing an environmental crisis, and the devastating impacts of climate change are being felt by communities and businesses all around the world. The latest science is clear. We have to reduce emissions at the pace and scale needed to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. So in response to that, in April, we've pledged to reach net zero by 2040. We've been working with the Carbon Trust, and we've established our emissions baseline because you can't manage what you can't measure. So that's been really helpful at scopes 1, 2 and 3, and that has given us an indication in terms of where our hotspots are, for example. 20% of our footprint is energy, 23% is all the food used across our restaurants. So really good information for us to then target where we need to invest and innovate further. We've also set science-based aligned targets, so we've got near-term targets by 2030, and over the next 16 years, by 2040, we've got to reduce our emissions by 90% across all areas of our operations and only eliminate the last 10% that we can't, only offset the last 10% we can't eliminate. So today I wanted to touch quite a bit on biodiversity. Climate change and nature loss are inextricably linked. And the World Economic Forum has highlighted biodiversity loss as the 3rd most severe long-term global risk. In addition to this, last week WWF released their Living Planet report, which highlighted the 73% decline in wildlife populations over the last 50 years. Now, the UK is committed to protecting 30% of land and seas by 2030 for nature and wildlife. But why is that important to us sitting here in the room today? Why is that relevant to hospitality? It was mentioned earlier, I think it was Danny that mentioned this, but food production and consumption is responsible for about 30% of global emissions, but it also contributes to around 60 to 80% of biodiversity loss. And the Living Planet report highlighted food systems as actually one of the main drivers of nature loss. So we, as a business, we know that we need to demonstrate how we're working to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So coming on to our first pillar, conserve nature, and what we're doing everything around there. So across our 850 acres, we have 3 golf courses. Great golfing experiences, whether spectating or playing, depend on nature. So it's vital that destinations like Gleneagles acknowledge this link and do everything we can to minimise the impact. We've got a wealth of experience and decades of knowledge across our greenkeepers and gardener teams, and they work tirelessly to make sure that we're managing our land responsibly. So optimal plant health and soil health is maintained by rigorous testing, and while we do need to treat our golf courses from time to time, in the warmer months we use natural products such as seaweed, which really help to promote good soil bacteria. We also use a lot of technology across the golf courses, so we have GPS sprayers when we do need to apply products to our greens, but they apply products with such pinpoint accuracy that it helps to reduce the amount of products we use by up to about 14%. So you can put in the exact location that needs it, and it will not overspray on the same area. We also leave quite a lot of areas spare for rewilding, so there's a lot of areas that are just left rough, and that helps to support nature corridors. And the RNA, they've been doing a really interesting study on golf and nature, so they're doing it over 5 years, and they said that golf courses are actually really vital to helping nature conservation and can be a big part of the government's target around protecting 30% of our land for nature by 2030. On water stewardship, I think we'll all agree that water is one of the planet's most valuable resources. Climate change is having a real impact on water scarcity. We've been recording rainfall data daily back to 1980, and what we've actually found in Scotland, where we are, it's actually more of a problem with more water. We've got too much water at the moment, but we are acutely aware that going forward, water scarcity is being felt already in Scotland and around the UK and, of course, across Europe. So we're acutely aware that we need to work and invest to minimise the amount of water that we're using across our operations. One of the ways that we do this is we do moisture testing of our golf courses pretty much daily, and that combined with irrigation systems with individually controlled heads, which are linked to weather stations, means that we're only watering where it's absolutely necessary, how much water is needed, factoring in any forecasted rainfall as well. This year, we've installed a new irrigation system on our PGA. It was over £2 million that we spent on this, but that will help us to reduce the amount of water that we use to water the golf courses by up to 30%, so helping to protect against that future water scarcity risk. Now, we have a very, very large team at Gleneagles and lots of experts in lots of different areas, but we're experts in hospitality and creating memorable experiences. We're not ecologists, we're not nature conservation experts. So we have partnered with Forth Rivers Trust, and we've been working with them this year to carry out a range of surveys during July. So we've been doing surveys to basically map all the habitats and species that we've got thriving and abundant across our estate. And that's just helping us understand what we need to do to protect and enhance going forward. They're using relatively new techniques as well. So one of the surveys we're doing is called eDNA, environmental DNA, and it's taken samples from a pond on site, and it goes away to the lab and it's analysed. And over the last 2 to 3 years, scientists have been building up the DNA of lots of different species. So while we might not see something on our land and our estate, we will know just by the DNA and the traces of DNA in this sample exactly what we have, and it'll give you a heat map of how prevalent they are. So it helps us just to make sure that we're doing everything we need to protect what's there and also enhance and bring in more species as well. We're working with Forth Rivers Trust as well on an action plan now over the next 3 years. So we are going to be planting up to 3,000 trees across our estate. That'll help with natural flood management, but it will also make sure that what we plant provides an all-year-round food source for a variety of insects and mammals living on site. And we're also going to plant areas of wildflower as well, so that'll help with bees and other pollinators. Lots of opportunities for our teams to get involved, so we'll have volunteering days, paid volunteering days, where people can get out with their wellies. Unfortunately, the best months for tree planting are any month with an R in it, so it's over the winter months. So coming on to how we're working to support wildlife. So we've got a range of activities. It's about 50 activities that we actually offer at Gleneagles across our estate. We've got horse riding, we've got gun dogs, we've got ferrets, we've got falconry. And we are committed to ensuring all the animals that call Gleneagles home, making sure that they're safe, happy and healthy. So this year we've established a charity partnership with the Scottish SPCA, and we're working with them to protect wildlife and to prevent animal cruelty. So the picture there, you see this is Uist. We've actually rehomed 8 birds of prey now from the SSPCA. He joined us about 18 months ago. He was found at a train station in Alloa, and knowing just how much we care about our animals and how much we look after them, our falconry experience is designed around these majestic birds of prey. And what we're doing is making sure that we're giving them that positive stimulation, the training, the rewards, the techniques that they would otherwise have been missing. So Uist came to us and he's living his best life now. Falconry is actually the second oldest sport in the UK, dating back to the medieval times. So a real part of history with our experiences. We are also now, to support the SSPCA further, every dog that comes to stay at Gleneagles, £10 will be donated to the SSPCA to help them continue this vital work that they're doing. We're also working with them to develop an educational programme for children, for our young guests that come to stay through our Little Glen Adventures programme, and just helping educate that next generation of sustainability advocates. We've also got on site, we've got a bug farm, so we have been doing this sort of work for a number of years now. Lots of creepy crawlies, insects, worms, and just sharing why they are so vital in terms of soil health. We do work as well with the local primary schools, so they're going to be getting involved, coming and helping tree planting with us, for example. So it's just important that we share that out within the local community and give them opportunities to come and be involved as well. This is one of our nature boards, and Danny talked a lot today about educating guests as well. So across Scotland, there's about 1,400 what we call triple SI, sites of special scientific interest. We have one at Gleneagles. It's a mire, it's a wetland. And this board, so when somebody's on the King's course playing golf, they can read all about the area that we fiercely protect because it really is recognised as habitat of the highest value. When we were out doing our surveys with Forth Rivers Trust, it was great to actually just stopped there, and there was a deer and her fawn munching on wild cranberries that were growing in the cotton grass. So it just showed you just how much this can actually support wildlife. We do have another a partnership as well at Gleneagles with Perth and Kinross Countryside Trust. So Gleneagles is located in the heart of Perthshire, which is named Big Tree Country. Around 13% of the land is covered with some of the most precious trees and woodland. And over this partnership over the last 15 years, guests, when they come to stay, will pay £1, which goes towards Perth and Countryside Trust. And we've raised, between us and our guests, over £325,000 over the last 15 years. So a huge benefit. And that money that has gone to woodland conservation, where it's absolutely needed across Scotland. There was 2 600-year-old Burnham oak trees that needed emergency work, and we funded that. And one of our restaurants is actually called the Burnham after the work that we contributed to there. I think today we've also been touching a lot on how we source our food. And we're very, very lucky at Gleneagles that we do have our own little green oasis. We've got our own kitchen garden on site. And this feeds into our local and seasonal food philosophy. Now, while we're very big, we've got 11 bars and restaurants, we'll never be self-sufficient with the space that we've got. But it's great to see the culinary teams engaged on this. And the gardeners are also learning, because our culinary teams and our gardeners will agree the seasonal edible flowers, the fruit, vegetables, herbs that we're going to grow each year. But the microclimate in Scotland is quite challenging, so they are realising that there's some things that are more difficult to grow, there's some things that we've got in abundance, and the chefs are thinking, oh my goodness, what we're going to do with all of these? So they're making incredible chutneys, so they've got to be creative. But for guests as well, they can walk around, they can see the kitchen garden, everything that's been growing. And this summer we've had a dish in our Strathearn each day, which has been made especially just from the kitchen garden, a dish of the day. But this kitchen garden is also helping to support biodiversity and wildlife as well, because we've got lots of bugs and insects and even toads and frogs roaming around the kitchen garden. I think going wider than just our estate, so coming on to our suppliers. So when I joined in January, as Alan mentioned, we just started about the same time, and I've done a lot of engagement with our supply chain now, just to understand exactly what they're doing around sustainability. And everybody's at different levels. Some are big corporate companies, some are very, very small companies, and they're all at different stages. But it's important that we help and support and guide and share lessons learned and best practice and bring people on the journey with us. An example of this was I went to our butchers who've been supplying us for over 10 years. All of our beef, lamb and venison is sourced in Scotland. Our beef and lamb is Scottish beef and lamb, so that we know it was being born, raised and killed in Scotland. So we have that traceability there, as well as the exceptional quality and the taste. But they had said, come and meet one of the farmers that we source from, the Hodges in Midlothian, and actually just going to meet them. I think somebody also touched on the language that you use with your suppliers and making it a bit more simple as well, because I turned up all full of life and said, all right, want to talk about regenerative farming and what you're doing around biodiversity, and I saw them looking thinking, oh my goodness. But when I actually just broke it down into simple speak and we chatted about wildlife, it was incredible. They just opened up and they started talking about the miles of hedgerows that they've got around the site and what that's doing in terms of biodiversity. They also talked about soil health, and Sandy Hodge had said that actually what they're finding, they grow beef and grain that they have. Just focusing on the soil health has increased the yields, but it's acting like a sponge. So it means that they're having to water their crops less, but in periods of really heavy rain, it's actually protected the local community over the last 3 years. There's been less flood events. So we're acting like a sponge. It's actually providing that wider benefit out into the community. So it was great to hear just what they're doing, but getting right back to the farm level. I think that's important, that you understand the transparency right across your supply chain and where you can help guide and make those interventions to make sure that our food systems are supporting nature, but also minimising our environmental impact. That's it from me today. Thank you very much.